Hey folks, this is Bailey from Dank Wargaming.
Hey, this is Heath from Team Tablewar Charities.
And welcome to The Path to Redemption, the Warhammer 40,000 Dark Angels podcast, where our aim is to provide Dark Angels players with the tactical and hobby skills that they need in order to compete and enjoy in this wonderful hobby of ours. So as you can see, I got some new stuff. It's a new year, new me. I got a new mic. It's the same mic that Heath's got. And we've got quite a show. Yeah, he's got a boom arm. I got one too.
A lot of stuff to talk
and
about.
Hopefully, as the time we're recording this, I don't have the new graphics, but I just talked to the artist, and I will have them by the time I finish editing this episode. So you'll see the brand new everything, new year, Path to Redemption. So on this episode, we're going to look at a couple of new releases that include the balanced data slate, some stuff we did know that was coming, something that kind of caught Heath and I by surprise. We're going to look at the Metawatch, where we have a couple smaller GTs, the Nottingham Super GT, and the LVO. And then Heath and I are going to talk about our joint tournament experience in our featured segment at the War on the Shore, which was a totally awesome thing that everyone should go do. I'm so glad Heath brought that up on the podcast a couple months ago, because I had a fantastic time, and I'm sure he did as well. And then we're going to look at the monthly challenge, and then community comments to wrap it all up. So, new releases, we had Balanced Data Slate drop in January, and one of the changes we knew was coming, which is the change to the Mounted Strategist enhancement in Company of Heroes, which is going to say now that you can reroll your advance and charge rolls for this bear's unit, because they've added its old rule to the detachment rule now, right?
Yeah.
So
this is the thing that they messed up in the original version of the Balanced Data Slate, and they said it was going to fix it in January, and they fixed it in January. So, good job.
Yep. And then the other thing that Heath and I got kind of caught on, and I want to apologize to people I played, because I played it the way that it's played now, not what technically it was set up to be, which is that the Black Knight's weapon, where I got dev wounds, that was only for the Black Knight's unit, not the dudes in the command squad, until the Balanced Data Slate. And it was just completely skipped my mind. Like, why wouldn't it be that way?
That either. They're Black Knight weapons. Why wouldn't they? But didn't notice.
Exactly.
It is fixed. That is now a thing. The command squad Black Knight weapons have the same devastating wound rule that the Black Knights do. So that's a nice little close loop.
Yep. It's just something to look forward to in the future when they do make these changes. Make sure very specifically, hey, because we don't have quite the universal rule like weapon sets anymore. Remember when we used to have like the armory at the back of the book? So if you changed one part of the armory list, it affected everything. Like, we don't have that anymore, and this is the consequence of that, is that you have to be very specific every time something shows up. You got to put it in.
Yeah. So
yep. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and share the Metawatch page here.
See what you got.
Yeah, so this is what we got here on the Metawatch page. And so this is up through Toby Bennett and the Nottingham GT. I don't have all the LVO stuff in just yet. Heath and I both been very busy, and we also had like a bunch of lists at our tournament. So we were up to like 10 lists by the time I kind of like started working on this. So I was like, we got to have a cutoff at some point, because otherwise we're going to be going for 4 or 5 hours, and
so much
nobody got time for that.
But honestly, if you think about it, this like indicates that the meta is kind of started to spread out, right? Whereas when we first started looking at things in this format, there was like 10 units and 8 of them were the same across every list, right? Now, like, not only is there like 50 units, right? There's, Stormlance Vanguard, Gladius, Librarius, Company of Hunters. There's 5 different detachments that are being used at a competitive level, or that have made it, to good results at a competitive level. So that indicates a good health. Right? So variety and diversity is good.
It also means the less likely, right, that one particular unit or something's going to get the big nerf hammer, because if it's not just everyone spamming the same 3 units and everyone's running the same list, then things get to stay the way they are, which we noticed in the Balanced Data Slate. There were no points increases for any of the Dark Angels units. Like Deathwing Knights didn't go up in points. The The knights didn't go up, none of the characters went up, so Games Workshop seems very happy with where things are with that having this, wide diversity of Dark Angels-ness, which is also fun for us because it gives us lots of different things to talk about.
Okay. Well, let's get into the Metawatch then.
All right, so as you can see here, we've got let's ping back here to the list here. So we have Zachary Morales. He got first place at the Glass City GT over in Toledo, Ohio. I 96 players, 5 rounds. You can see Tanner or Zach up there with his Vanguard in this column right here.
Yep.
All right, so he had an Azrael, he had a Librarian and Terminator armor with the Blade Driven Deep. He has the Tech Marine, he has the Assault Intercessors with jump packs ×2. This is the fun one. Centurion Devastator Squad. All right, with las cannons and missile launchers.
A big 6-man mob of them. Yeah.
Yep. We've got Deathwing Knights. We've got Inner Circle Companions. We've got the 2 Destructor Predators, and then some Scouts, and then 2 Vindicators. So we've got what used to be very similar to like the Storm, it's like a hybrid, not Stormlance, Iron Storm list, right? Because it's got all the vehicles. But you're taking advantage of the fact, right, while you're in Vanguard, all these things at range are -1 to hit.
Yeah.
Right, so you have a little bit of love there. And then with that Centurion Devastator Squad, you have the Strike from the Shadows stratagem to help you make them hit
+1 to hit
a lot harder.
Point of AP, and they can jump around the board, go back up into strategic reserves, come on at a different board edge to get a good firing lane. I played against this at Dallas Open, and they're just gonna they're gonna get a shot on you, right? You can't really hide against it, especially on turn 3 and later.
Yep.
So it's and then being able to put a unit of Deathwing Knights out in the front, with your Blade Driven Deep, so they'll be able to forward deploy, right, and get closer to that center objective and threaten the center of your line. And then once again, lots of uppy downy stuff with the jump pack intercessors and the scouts. So I think, where do you think Azrael goes in this? I think he goes with the Inner Circle Companions.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Give them that 4-up invuln and sustained hits.
And then double Vindicator.
Oh, they already have.
Well, he would give them sustained hits on their strike profile, right? And my experience is that they very rarely, it's not super common that you come up on the need to use their sweep profile with its 1 damage. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Alrighty.
I do not recommend anyone go into buy Vindicators because they are firstborn tanks and they probably aren't long for this world. But I got a buddy who's building a White Scars armor right now. He's like, I really like Vindicators. Don't buy any Vindicators. They're I would be honestly surprised if they last another edition. Especially because they're not a mainline iconic tank like a Land Raider is.
Well, and then you also have the issue, right, that they've got the old molds, and so the gaps in them, you have to have more putty to fix the gaps in the models.
Yeah.
Unless you can go find someone that's got one of the old, early 90s boxes, Vindicators, where it'll seal up a lot nicer. That's something I've heard is an issue with, the Rhino and whatnot.
The molds are kind of tired.
Yep. So then we have Tanner Floyd. He's at Frostbite GT, 48 players, 6 rounds in Phoenix, Arizona on January 4th. He's running Storm Lance. All right, we've got Azrael, Chaplain on bike with Fury of the Storm. The Lion Dad is the Warlord, Samael. Regular Intercessor Boys, 2 squads of Assault Intercessor Boys, 3 Definite Wing Knights, Inner Circle Companions, and then 2 Outriders.
2 squads of 3 Outriders, which I like.
Yep.
I like the little unit of 3 Outriders because they buff the character they're with, and strength 5, AP 1, 2 damage on the charge. With that Chaplain giving him +1 to wound, that's not bad. I ran one of those in my list for War on the Shore, and the only downside is, the AP kind of stinks. Right, but in Stormlance, you have that Fury of the Storm enhancement, which gives the character an extra couple of points of AP on the charge, which is really nice. So, strength 7 with +1 to wound at AP 3 and 3 damage for a Chaplain on the bike. Let's go. So,
that is definitely a nice thing. And then there's a lot of like meat on those Outrider bikes, right? Being 4 wounds each, which helps a
Yeah.
lot.
There's also a distinct lack of shooting in this list. There is just
Yeah.
there's no guns basically. There's like 5 bolters and then the bikes and then
Yep.
pistols, and that's great. I love it. So
Yep. Get down that board and punch whatever's in front of you. Sometimes it's all you got to do.
range shooting,
Alrighty.
that's what my bike is for. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly. With dev wounds, of course.
Yep.
All right, so we're looking at Sean Sharp. He's at the ProCon Golden Ticket GT in Ontario, Oregon. This is a 5-round, 23-player event. He went 5-0 with the Gladius Task Force, got first place. So we're looking at Lion Dad, Azrael, Intercessor Squad, Inner Circle Companions, Scout Squad, 1 Invader ATV, 2 Ballistus Dreadnoughts, a Dark Shroud, 3 Redemptors, and a Vindicator.
Distinct
So,
lack of Deathwing Knights here.
Yep.
Distinct lack of Deathwing Knights, which is interesting.
But there's again, a lot of big punchy robots, which normally we're used to seeing this in those Ironstorm lists that were so dominant and prevalent through a large chunk of last year. And it's like, well, we just kind of took that section and just moved it over into this other detachment to where now we have all the utility options in Gladius Task Force with fall back and shoot and charge, advance and charge, advance and shoot, right? You've got all these other options in there. Access to Lance on Redemptors is probably a real nice thing. Same thing
honestly,
with Lion Dad.
The Redemptor fills the same role as the Deathwing Knights because it's -1 damage, right? It's a 2-up save, right? But it's like toughness 10 or 11, right? So it's a little harder to interact with the small shooting stuff. So, but once again, it can't move through walls, and it's only got like 10 wounds, or I think it's 11 wounds instead of the 20 wounds that a unit of knights has. So there's a bit of a trade-off, but
yep,
yeah,
But I love it. I love seeing all the exciting big shooting. As much as the last list had no big shooting, this list has all the big shooting with all the dreadnoughts and the Vindicator.
And one of the things I keep forgetting about is that Redemptor Dreadnought, when you overcharge it, yeah, its damage goes from damage 2 to damage 3, but it also goes from AP 3 to AP 4. And that's the thing that I frequently forgot, was that its overcharge gun is AP 4, and that's the only ranged AP 4 shooting that the Marines have. That'll go a long ways. So, and also, something I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of, and I have seen in some other armies, is Invader ATVs priced at 60 points. Is a fantastic, just little action monkey unit for Marines. It's cheaper than Scouts. It's cheaper than basically anything in the book other than a Tech Marine or an Apothecary at 55. But it's got 8 wounds, it's got speed, and it can shoot back when it's next to your bikes. And it's just going to be there to help you go, score containment and sit on stuff and just be fast. And look, it's toughness 5 with 8 wounds, so it's not going to die to a stiff breeze.
Well, and if you give it the Gatling gun, then it's got a dev wound cannon on it that can come in handy every so often.
Most of the times I'm seeing it with multi-meltas because that gives it that'll kill a Terminator type thing. All of mine are modeled with Gatling cannons because I took all the multi-meltas and put them onto land speeders in 9th edition. But is what it is. So, and once again, that Vindicator.
Oh, yeah. All right, so do you want to do Friend Alan or Friend Toby next?
Well, let's talk about Alan.
All right, so Alan and Toby both went to the Nottingham Super GT event. Both took Stormlance. Alan is packing Azrael, Calidus, Chaplain and Terminator armor, 2 Deathwing Knight squads, 2 Inner Circle Companion squads, a Jump Pack Intercessors, the Combi Weapon Lieutenant, 1 Reaver squad, a Scout squad, and then a Terminator Assault squad, which I'm super stoked about because I've been thinking about Terminator Assault squads because I have a bunch of them still left over from 9th edition, and some of the stratagems and things that exist, like you can kind of give them, depending on the detachment, you can give them -1 to wound or -1 damage, not in Stormlance, but in like First Company and things like that you can. So you can like almost baby make them Deathwing
They're
Knights, and
they're
you can still have
70
that
points
10-man
cheaper
squad.
than Deathwing Knights. They can still go to 10, which is kind of the big attractiveness to them, I think.
Yep.
They hit on 4s with their Thunderhammers, right? So you really kind of like, and if they're next to the Lion, he can give them +1 to hit, and that's really nice. But yeah, I mean, just as a discount thing, then they've got some attractiveness. Now, I
Yep.
do want to comment on the Reavers. I think that Reavers maybe making, like them being a thing that can debuff OC, that's really
Yep.
nice. That's a capability that no one else really has that I'm aware of. And it's like a reliable battle shock. So maybe start
Well,
looking at
and think about all of the detachments from Grotmus that gave people like silly OC boosting abilities, or
yeah,
like the permanent sticky. Like it's not just enough that it's a sticky objective; you have to beat the OC of the unit that's sticky this, like with Tyranids and things like that. And
yeah.
it's like, well, how do you go in and mess with all of that, or stop that from being a big issue from the beginning? Is Reavers run in there and de OC them, and so that it's easier to flip that objective when the time comes.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, do they have infiltrate?
Reavers, I think, come either with a scout move or a deep strike. I don't think they have an actual
I know
infiltrate
they have
ability.
space. I know they have deep strike. I'm trying to look it up real quick.
I think
There's
they just have
so
a
many
scout
data
move.
sheets. So
Yep.
many data sheets. Abilities. They scout 6 and have
Mm-hmm.
Oath a Moment. War gear abilities. So they have deep strike with the grab shoot. And they can ignore vertical distance during normal advance, fallback, and charge. And
Yeah, with the
within three
grappling hooks.
inches, yeah, with the grappling hooks, right? They make you take a battle shock at -1, and when they're within 3 inches of an enemy unit that's not a monster or vehicle, subtract 1 from the OC characteristic of models in that unit. And that is not pick one unit; that is every enemy unit within 3 inches of them. So there's that could be, yeah, that
No,
could
I'm
be
a big
interesting.
fan,
That could be interesting.
and it's a unit that Games Workshop, since it's come out, has tried really hard to make a thing, and they just have not been a thing, right? Like they're
Well,
supposed to be sort of like mini chaplains running around scaring people, giving them the heebie-jeebies, and the way morale has worked for the last couple of editions, it just hasn't been as impactful. I think
yeah,
as the concept of what the unit could be or should be has not translated well to the table, but having this OC debuff in it, I think it's finally they're gonna have that spot in their list, especially then with with armies that
yeah.
have the ability to manipulate OC, um, including Space Marines. I think having a unit like this in your list is going to matter more. It's just one of those things I feel like, though, when I play, is that things that are outstanding on an objective are either like you're either going to kill them all anyway, or they're big enough that they don't care that there's 5 Reavers there messing with their OC. And that's where I'm sort of like,
I mean, if you think
they're
about
just
it,
going to,
think about
that's where I'm
this.
kind of there at it.
Anything that's not like a battle line unit that's got OC2, your Reavers can just run up to that objective, toe tap it, and then be like, hey, if I'm within 3 inches of a model in your unit, like Terminators, Hellblasters, like Assault Intercessors, anything that is OC1, now I own that objective. I don't have to get an
That's
engagement
fair.
range of you, right? I don't have to fight you. I just need to go up there and be like, boop, mine. I'm scary. And there's nothing your opponent can do about that. And
And
that's
that,
good.
and that matter.
Things that constrain
Yeah.
choice, right, and flip objectives reliably are good, objectively.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's with like things like I remember like with Purge the Foe mission, right, where you score who has the most, hold one, hold more at the end of your command phase. So if you can, on your turn, run out, flip something, so that when it comes to their next command phase, and now suddenly they don't hold more, that's primary points that they're leaving on the table that they
yeah.
can't get back. So
I mean, like we could start seeing things like a an impulsor, right? Because every model inside
Yeah.
it has scout. Now it has scout. So it could scout, it can move, it can advance, they can jump out, boom, debuff, and that just flips you an objective.
Yep.
And I mean, so now it's gonna like, oh, I have to move to like prevent you from even touching the objective. I don't know. I think there's some play there that has not been fully explored yet. So good job, Alan.
Yep. And then friend Toby with Dilf on wheels. So there you go.
Because we have
I
to say
said it
it
for you,
because we
buddy.
understand, Toby, what you want from us. We understand the
Yep.
assignment. 3 Deathwing
We have
Knights,
to give the people what
of
they want.
course. Yeah. Any Toby list just starts with 3 Deathwing Knights, and then you
Yep.
have 3 Ballista Dreadnoughts, Azrael, the Assault Intercessors, the jump 1 unit of Jump Intercessors, 1 unit of Outriders, a Ravenwing Command Squad, a unit of Reavers, and 2 units of Scouts. Is there anything else there that I can't see?
No, I think the Tech Marine should be the last. Oh, Whirlwinds. Yeah, there's no Vindicators or Whirlwinds in this list,
Okay.
so we're good.
So Toby runs a lot of. He likes the jail concept, so I think he uses his scouts, right, and his reavers, that kind of stuff, to try and
Yeah.
like push up and like block your movement and constrain you in your deployment zone for at least a turn. You're going to do nothing but killing scouts, right? And I think a unit of bikes will probably also help
Well,
with
and then
that.
he's also got right the command squad with the outrider squad, so he has that turn one. I'm just going to blitz the entire length of the board, charge into you because you can get that 9-inch advance on top of your already fast movement,
Hmm.
and then charge at the end of it and just block. And then you got the big bases on the bike, so you can go in and block up a lot of space.
And one of the things that we've noticed, and especially because we saw some really high level company hunters play at War on the Shore, was so you can so the command squad is a character and 2 other models. All 3 of them are not a character. So the bodyguard rule only applies to the company champion. That means is you can put wounds on like the ancient before anything else. So if you put and the ancient has 4 wounds, right? So you take a 3 damage hit, you put it on the ancient. You take a 3 damage hit, then you put it on the ancient again, ancient dies, right? And then
Yep.
you start going to your outriders, right? And then when your apothecary brings a guy back, you bring back the ancient. So that's 4 wounds back, right? So it provides you a lot more kind of resiliency there. And the ancient also has a 5 up interval save because he's part of the command squad. So uh, yeah. And one of my chief complaints about the Ravenwing Black Knights is there are 3 wounds and range 3 damage shooting, which there's a reasonable amount of. Just
Yep.
picks them
Yep.
all up. Just picks them all up, right? So Outriders kind of get you past that break point. So yeah,
Yep. Lets them have to. Yep. They start soaking up those extra wounds even without the invuln. So yep. No, it's a powerful bit. And I know from having talked with Toby behind the scenes, like on Facebook Messenger and stuff, that the reactive move inside of Stormlance is like his favorite part.
really
Like,
good. Yeah, really good. So once again, it
so,
just makes
and
the jail even better. You're gonna move closer to me. I'm gonna either jail you up even harder to reduce your charge distance, right? To limit your movement, or I'm just gonna pull back out of your charge range or your shooting. So
yep, pop behind a
yeah,
wall,
it,
get out of
it
the
makes
way,
your
and then I
it
also
makes your opponent spend a lot of brain power considering the possible
yep,
permutations of how you're going to react to that. So
yep, yep. All right, and then let's see. The one of the lists that was not at our tournament, I'm gonna pop over here was Sebastian here, and Sebastian was in Hamburg, Germany at a major event, had 103 players, 5 rounds in Hamburg, Germany. He went undefeated with Gladius Task Force. He had Azrael, he had the Blade Guard Ancient, Lieutenant in Phobos armor. He had the Lion Dad. He had Jump Pack Intercessors. He had 3 Deathwing Knights, the Return of the Gladiator Lancers, a pair of them, 1 Inner Circle Companion Squad, an Invader ATV, and a Scout Squad for a 5-0.
yeah, that's good. 2 Lancers, Lion Dad, Outriders. Yeah. Yeah, and Lancers are interesting. They're kind of delicate to take the hit back, the clap back. So, but this is just a good old fashioned list that it's kind of center
Yep.
mass, and it's gonna do what it does reliably, right? Like the gladiators as you're shooting, right? Really nice because they have the built-in reroll for hit, wound, and damage, so they
Yep.
can work independent of your oath target, which is nice. And yeah,
Oh yeah.
3 units of Deathwing Knights and Inner Struggle Companions, they're just gonna get up there and punch stuff, man. Jump Pack and
Yep.
Lion Dad, Outriders, Scouts. So they're all gonna,
Yep. Azrael in there with the Inner Circle companions.
yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, and then do you want to talk about LVO real quick before we jump into the stuff from War on the Shore?
Sure, we don't have a whole lot of stuff about LVO because it happened like last weekend, and we've
Yep.
been very, very busy. One of the things to note, though, is so the best Dark Angel player at LVO, who went 5-1, 65th overall, was Tablewar Hawaii's own Robert Moreau. And
Yep.
as you probably have seen, he did that with a Librarius Conclave, which nobody saw coming other than the people at War on the Shore who saw that
Yep.
list
Yep.
and saw Robert play it and went, "Oh wow, that's really good," because
Yeah, oh yeah.
he was in winning position at War on the Shore. He played on the top table against the Emperor of Table War, Doug Johnson and his bully boys, and the orcs whooped them pretty hard, right? Beat him so bad he went down to fourth place.
Yep.
But it's a good list, and we'll talk about it a bit when we get to War on the Shore. And he had a slight change going to LVO, which we can talk about too, right?
Right.
What else you want to say about that?
Uh uh I mean, that's kind of where I'm at just cuz that's what I've prepared for is because I know, like, again, like we have a bunch of lists here, and we have a bunch of there were a bunch of Dark Angels lists, but nobody was higher than Robert. So just knowing how much material we got, I'm pretty satisfied with that. With what's left
Yeah,
to come, I guess the main thing to look at with this overall, right? What are some things that actually are consistent across most of the lists, right? So because we have so many of them here, we're still seeing Azrael everywhere for the most part, and we're still seeing Deathwing Knights, and we're still seeing Scout squads pretty much across
yeah,
all lists, with the notable exception of Aaron's Company of Hunters list that we're about to hop into when we get into the tournament. Um, but it's like you said before, it's interesting to look at the fact that it used to be there was like 3 or 4, like the last time we had an episode, and into November, right? Like there was like 4 or 5 units that were in every single list, and now that is just not the case. Like it's now down to 3, and I think that's like the biggest thing. There's a lot more diversity and opportunity to experiment. There's a lot of good stuff, so it's less about people having to, oh, I got to run the good stuff and win. It's more a, well, there are good things. These are my favorite ones, and I'm going to try this combination of it this week. And then, maybe next week at an RTT and not such a big tournament, I'll experiment with this other thing. So, which is always a fun place to be in, where you don't feel like you're trapped into
yeah,
playing the same thing over and over again. And then for your opponents, it works out because then your opponents don't feel like they're beating their head against the same Deathwing Nightwall that they've been beating their head against since,
that being said,
8th
the
edition.
Deathwing Nightwall is still really good. It's still very effective.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Alrighty. So do you want me to pop this up, or do we want to pop up the other thing?
I'll do the other thing. So go ahead and close that out.
Alrighty.
So let's see. Well, I'm going to do my screen share here. So if you want to talk about our Metawatch, then sorry, I'm having a couple of minor. Where is this
Yeah,
at?
no worries.
Window. Oh, okay. Yeah, here we go. Okay, um, so we had a 32 player event here in Hawaii. It's called the War on the Shore. Right? It was 5 rounds. It was in Mokuleia, Hawaii. Like, okay, well, where is that? This is the island of Oahu, and it was at Camp Erdman, which is way up here. Right?
Oh yeah.
This is about an hour and a bit from where I live, and it was an hour almost drive from picking up Bailey at the airport to get there. So the one of the attractive things about this, and it is going to be an event that we're going to try and do again next year. So heads up, is all lodging and the meals are included in the ticket price. This last year it was $300. No guarantees that will be that next year because economies and whatnot. But
Yep.
hey, look, you got basically a 4-day event, your 4-day trip to Hawaii, right? For and all your lodging and food is $300. That plus your airplane ticket, and that's pretty good for a trip to Hawaii. Right, you're going to spend
Yeah.
$300 plus per night just for the hotel in Waikiki. I guarantee you that. So everyone, all the guests arrived on Thursday afternoon. There were some people that got there Wednesday. That can be accommodated if thing. The event concluded on Sunday. So Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, 3 nights, 4 days. Right. It was sponsored by Tablewar and the Army Painter. Right, so a lot of the swag and there was raffle giveaways that was a lot of Army Painter products as well as some Tablewar products. So here's some pictures. So it was once again literally on the beach. Right,
Yep.
the beach is maybe 50 yards away. Right, and a lot of games were played in this little kind of I don't know like pavilion outside. You had a nice breeze
Yeah.
coming through.
Shelter.
Yeah, the breeze was so good that it knocked over some terrain, so we're going to fix that next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also in this little cabin, this little event space next door, right? So some pictures from the event. So this is morning, right? This is the beach that's right next to the event space. This is inside the main or one of the event halls, right? And all the food is provided at they have basically a cafeteria. It's a YMCA camp, right? So if you've ever been to one of those, you kind of know
Yeah.
what you're looking at. The food's actually really good. I enjoyed it. And they had some like camp type activities. For example, that's Todd, who owns Tableware, is climbing a tower. You know, so that was a thing that we all got to
Heath
do.
got you got about that high up, didn't you, Heath?
No, I got almost
Or
to
did you get a little bit
the.
higher?
I got up here, and then like my knees aren't that great from spending 20 years on submarines, and I tried to make the jump to that center one and didn't quite catch it. So oh well. But so anyway, the first place was Doug Johnson with his Bully Boys list, and the top table that he beat was Rob Moreau's Librarius Conclave. In third place was Aaron Wish with Company of Hunters, which one is a very interesting list, which we'll talk about here in a second. Your humble hosts, I got 17th overall, and Bailey got 23rd, right? And we'll go over our lists individually. Okay, so that's all I got for that, for that little heads up.
All right, so I can bring this back up. Then we
Yeah.
can look at lists here. Alrighty, so we're gonna start with Robert then, the main man, the big man. So we're looking here at he had Azrael, he had 2 Deathwing Knights, 3 Inner Circle. Go back. 3 Inner Circle Companions, 3 regular librarians, 2 Terminator librarians, the Lion Dad, 2 Scout squads, and a Stern Guard squad, and that was the list.
So,
and so this is
yeah, it's very very different. The
yep.
Librarius Conclave gives anything with a librarian attached to it a big uplift in output. And I'm going to try and get Robert on here, see if we can get him in a week or two to talk him through this list, and maybe also do the same with Aaron, because his perspective on how this works is probably going to be a lot better than mine. But one of the things that's interesting, so the Stern Guard, it's a 10-man unit of Stern Guard, and this is basically his anti-vehicle, anti-monster shooting, because there's a librarian in that unit that gives them a 4 pinball save, and that librarian has an enhancement that gives the ranged weapons anti-vehicle, anti-monster 5+. So what does that mean? Well, Stern Guard, all their guns have devastating wounds. So
yes, they do.
So that 10-man unit at 24 inches will put out 20 shots, a good portion of which you're going to hit, and you're probably going to generate 4 or 5 mortal wounds per bucket of shooting. If you're within 12 inches, rapid fire 1. Now it goes up even more, right? And stratagems they have will either increase the range of that, or I don't know. It's a complex detachment, but it's really good. So the two Terminal Librarians with the Deathwing Knights, one of them has this enhancement that lets them advance and charge. And they can go first turn plus 2 inches of movement, so they can get themselves in position. Turn 2, they can go into the reroll ones to hit and wound. Right. Azrael and another librarian go with the Inner Circle Companions and scouts to do scout things. It's and Lion just because hey, he's the Lion. Right. So it's a really interesting list. Right. And a lot of it relies on Robert's unnatural ability to roll 4 vulnerable saves, which is a talent that has been known about on the team for a number of years. He is a bit of a mad lad, but no, it's really good. And once again, he did really good at our tournament. The only person that Aaron, the Company of Hunters list, lost to was Rob's Librarius Conclave, right? Because I think what Aaron said was like he just rolled. Like he dumped an entire squad of Black Knight with command squad shooting into him, like 27 overcharged plasma shots. He made 80% of the saves. Oh well.
Yeah,
So
that is rough.
Yeah. So, do you remember anything else from talking to Aaron or Rob about this?
I didn't get a chance to talk to Rob. I got a chance to ride back to the hotel with Aaron and just kind of talk about life in Hawaii and his list a little bit. So I'm a little more prepared to talk about that if you're ready to pop over and talk about the one list without
talk about
any of the main things.
The Company of Hunters, who eschewed Azrael and the Deathwing Knights because he's a Ravenwing purist.
So. And no scouts. Like the 3 things we talked about, everybody has. He had none of it. So that's what's so awesome about this. So he does have a Calidus in the list, but he has the Dark Shroud. He has 3 Invader ATVs. Yep, he's got the Lieutenant with combi weapon. He's got Lion Dad. We've got 3 command squads. We've got 3 Ravenwing Black Knights. I feel like there was something else in this list. Oh, yep, and then 2 Thunderstrikes. All right. Sorry, I forgot to click the thing. So there you go. I knew there was, because he didn't have the actual Primaris ones. I remember him telling me very specifically he was using like the older Forge World land speeders, because I was like, those are neat. I haven't seen those in a while. And he was like, oh yeah, that's what these are. So, the main thing here for him was taking advantage of like the pregame scout move, right? Having that enhancement on one of his command squads and just basically going across the board as fast as he could with one of those. I think at one point he told me that there was a point where he would like outflank or reserve one of the squads. He would advance scout one of the squads and then have the other one sort of on the table, because you have to remember how much space these Black Knights take, right?
Yeah.
And then, right, the Lion is there with his mortal wound buff to help take mortal wounds off his bikes when they fail their hazardous rolls. So that's why he's in the list. And then you have the combi weapon lieutenant, because he's already lone op, to stand next to the Lion, which then gives the Lion lone op, so that the Lion can stand in the sea of bikes that won't lone op protect him because they're bikes and not infantry. And he can just keep giving the buffs. And then when the time comes, he can charge in and do Lionel Johnson things. But that was like his big deal. He's like, just go in and shoot. Like, go out there, go get them. And that seemed to be the main piece of it. And I've also talked to him about some stuff like with my list, and he was like, or I think we talked about that afterwards, about like, just, why would you put shooting or into a list that's about punching? So he had, because I was talking about Stormlance and putting Eradicators in. He's like, no, it's a charging detachment. Go in there and punch. And so with Company of Hunters, it's a shooting list. So he's got lots and lots of shooting, but having the 9 Blackwing Knight melee weapons, essentially, 8 plus the sword of the champion, which is not a, not shabby at all weapon.
Yeah.
Like, charging in and punching things to death after you've shot them to death with plasma talons is pretty powerful.
I think it's interesting.
So it just seemed to be
that he considers this to be a shooting list and not a fighting list. Most people would think it's a combat list. Like we all went out to dinner at Monkey Pod afterwards and sat there and talked for a bit. And this is a very, very high skill floor. Like, it takes a lot of experience, a lot of practice to play it, because like I said, the footprint of the bikes is so big and knowing how to move them around and set all that up. But obviously, the results you can get are pretty good. This tournament was all played on the official GW terrain layouts,
Yep.
which I'm a big fan of because they give you some areas where there's obscuring terrain that is less than 2 inches tall, so bikes can still move over it. So you can like set up behind it, and then if you get the first turn, you can scout 9 over it and then go. Right. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not to say that he doesn't like go out and punch things, because I mean he was definitely moving and shooting and charging as much as he could with this, because right, it's one of those things where you have these big squads and they're built to operate in 2 phases, and you only have so many, so you got to keep your kill count high every turn, or else you're going to fall behind on the 8 ball. So, but yeah, no, it was neat to listen to him talk about it. It's like when we had Charlie Andre on a couple years ago, and he was like, "So everything you've heard about how Deathwing Knights work, forget about it. This is what I do, and this is why I'm winning." And we both just kind of sat there in awe. That's kind of how I felt in the car on the way back to Honolulu with Aaron, as he was explaining some of this that I unfortunately have not remembered all of it to the T. And I'm sure he's also very open. He's like, "Yeah, I'm the guy in the comments that's always telling you guys to get it together because you're wrong." So we're like, we appreciate him keeping us honest in the comments, because I'll admit I'm
a show that we're not top table, right? So we're here because
exactly,
not because you should listen to us.
Yeah. Exactly. But no, we'll try and get him on too, along with Robert, because just to listen to him talk, he's got, he's very easy to listen to. You know what I mean? Like he's got nice, like mellow voice, easy to listen to as he's explaining everything. He's very, willing to explain the logic behind everything. And so it was very enjoyable to talk with him, and we'll hopefully get him on so he can do a much better job than I can of explaining how all this works. But no, it was neat to sit there and listen to, like, same thing, like I said, it was like with Charlie Andre. It was like listening to him explain how Deathwing Knights work. I'm like, oh, this is all stuff that I'm not capable of coming up with on my own. So it's nice to hear you talk about it.
All right, well, so let's talk about what you and I did.
Let's go. We got Heath here.
So I think yours was first.
Oh, mine's first?
But yeah.
Oh, I mean, either way.
Okay. Sure. Okay, so I guess we can do mine. So I will send you over the output of my list. But basically, we had talked about me trying to play Lion's Blade, and I played several games with the Lion's Blade over the holidays to try and get comfortable enough to do it, and I just couldn't get there. I don't think I ever once pulled off the detachment thing where I got a unit in combat and got +2 to charge. Now the enhancements and the stratagems are really good, but like leaving the saying I don't have the experience with this list to be able to do the detachment rule, and leaving your entire set of rules on the shelf wasn't there for me. So I went back to Gladius. That being said, I did want to feature some things that I thought were interesting and new about from the data slate. So what I got here is Azrael with a bike chaplain, the Lionel Johnson's the warlord, and I've got Sammy. So they got a unit of 5 intercessors who were really good. Them, like the double shooting and it's like that, I was happy with that. Like they Azrael plus that unit of 5 intercessors killed a chaos war dog by themselves.
Oh wow, yeah,
it was oathed. I didn't see that coming. I was like, I'm gonna soften it up so I could. Oh my god, it's dead. What just happened? So
that
being said, I rolled with the crack grenade launcher. I rolled a 6 to hit and like sustained and wounded twice. It was anyway. So okay,
nice.
So there's the intercessors, and then I've got a Razorback, a Ballistus Dreadnought, 2 units of Deathwing Knights, one with maces, one with power weapons, a unit of Devastators with grav cannons, and a unit of Incursors, a Predator Destructor, an Outrider squad with 3 bikes, a unit of Black Knights, and a Scout squad. So the stuff here is, I really felt, based on how good Star Shatter is, and I knowing how much Necron players there are in our meta, I thought I was going to see Star Shatter, and I thought I was going to see a lot of Silent Kings. I didn't play Necrons, but there were a lot of Star Shatter, and there were a lot of Silent Kings. So, and the grav cannons were my solution for ranged anti-vehicle, i.e., FU Silent King. So the idea here is that your incursors can scout, right? They kind of start somewhere in the middle of the board. They just kind of be there, and they're whatever. And then the turn you need to, they advance for. They move forward. They'll advance forward because this is the turn you save your Devastator Doctrine for. The Razorback goes, and then the grav cannons jump out, or they get out and they move, depending on how you need to do it. And then you can hit the whatever you're shooting at with the incursors to give it +1 to hit. Now the grav cannons shoot, and now they're +1 to hit, so they're hitting on 3s.
Yep.
Right? Possibly oathed. Right? And then you're wounding on 2s because they're grav cannons into a vehicle. And then if you're shoot it with the Razorback, now you're rerolling all those 1s to wound. Right? And the turn, and you storm a fire it so that they are ignore cover and their additional point of AP. So that means, grav cannons' biggest problem is their native AP1, and this takes them to AP2 ignore cover. So this is really good into vehicles, but the secondary use case is anti-Terminator. And that worked out for me one game, right? Because now it's, hey, they're strength 6, AP1, 3 flat damage, but if I do this, they're going to be AP2 ignore cover. 3 flat damage, re-rolling wounds, which is, I don't really need into vehicles, but into things like Terminators, really helps. So, and it's 12 shots, probably going to hit with 10 of them, and I'm going to wound with at least 10 of them, and it's a lot of damage. So, it worked every single game. It did something really, really good. With the exception of one game where I got a little greedy with split fire and should have been whatever. So the Outriders with the Chaplain, I was thinking, hey, +1 strength, +1 damage on the charge. Outrider gives them +1 to wound. I'm wounding Marines on 2s. I'm going to pick up a lot of Marines, right?
Yep.
And honestly, good. I didn't play any Marines, but I did. I played a Wolf Jail list, but the AP1 puts them on the Rinvoll save, right? But anyway, so that's the list. So out of 5 games, my first game was into Custodes, and it was a pretty solid win. So the terrain layout allowed me to. There was a objective in the middle of the board, and I was able to, with the way the terrain setup was, put the lion so that he was able to move. He was behind cover. He moved to the wall, toe tapped the center objective, and he's within 3 inches of a unit of Deathwing Knights that are behind the wall. So he's controlling the center objective. He can't be shot unless you come out, and if you do, well, he's gonna punch you along with the Deathwing Knights. And my opponent didn't really know what to do about that, and so he castled a little more conservatively, and so he basically just yielded primer to me for the first 2 turns. And by the time he did realize he had to come out and go, it was too late. Now he made a run for it, right? Big units of Custodes are really good, really good, right? And honestly, the grav cannons, I blew up his Caladius grav tank, and then made a real they're T6 on the Custodes, 3 wounds, AP2 ignore cover. That's also really good for the grav cannons. Also really good in Custodians. But just the way that everything kind of lined up, it didn't quite get a chance to try that again. But I had a handy win, 88-74 for my first game.
Nice.
So pretty happy with the way that played out. So my second game was into Ben, who had a Chaos Knights, and it was a full 13 War Dogs.
Ooh.
No infantry, no nothing, just 13 War Dogs. It was basically a short edge to short edge deployment. And I was like, well, I have a lot of anti-infantry. I have a lot of anti-vehicle between the Deathwing Knights and the grav cannons and the Black Knights and all that stuff. And kind of the same thing. I was able to put the lion up, toe tap the middle, keep the Deathwing Knights kind of hidden. And the first couple turns worked out really good in my favor. He was being a little cagey moving up, and my predator, my ballistas were shooting and blowing stuff up. And the he moved up with the intent of shooting the lion with a bunch of the Melta spears. Forgot that he was lone op, and he's like, "Oh, dang it!" And just so we lost a bit of a good amount of efficiency there. Um, where this went wrong for me was the turn I decided to go and push. I needed to I declared Devastator globally so that I could get my grav cannons out and shoot and hopefully kill uh, two Chaos Knights or
Right.
two War Dogs. And then I put the Lion with a CP into Assault Doctrine so he could advance and charge. And when I split fire, incursored one of them, the other one, and I didn't kill a single knight with shooting for the two grav
Ooh,
can for
that's
the
not good.
two. So split fire. Look, I got greedy. It is what it is. And then the Lion rolled a 1 to advance and failed a 6-inch charge.
Ooh.
And so was
Ooh.
left there with his little cool cape hanging in the breeze. And that was bad because now he just rolled up and
Yeah.
just melted right to the face, and down goes the Lion. So this being game 2, it was like the third time the Lion had failed a 6-inch or less charge in 2 games. I was very
Oh
unhappy,
no.
but I don't know. So I made a real solid push so that being said, my center broke, and the War Dogs came out. They started pushing up. I made a real good go of it, right? He came into my backfield with a couple of things, and Azrael stepped back there, and they shot Azrael and those intercessors. I swear to God, killed 2.5 knights.
Oh, nice.
And by themselves, and Azrael killed another one by himself, right? And it was anyway. I ended up losing 80-93. But for 3 things that went wrong. One, dice are out of my hands, but I can't blame dice. If I had probably not been quite as greedy, killed one of those things that I shot, and also the way I moved my cavalry up on my right flank, I
Mm-hmm.
led with the Black Knights and Samael instead of with the Outriders and the Chaplain. And if I had led with the Outriders, I might have just their chonkierness with the 4 wounds, and then let the Outriders basically be there let the Black Knights be there when the Outriders died to go countercharge and kill some stuff. Might you know might have swung the game for me. I was not displeased with that game, right? An 80-point loss, you gave it your all, and I pulled some stuff out of my butt to make it a lot closer than it kind of felt like on turn 4. So anyway, my third game was into Tau, an auxiliary cadre, which was the new Grotmus attachment, and I got riggedy wrecked because Tau
Thank.
are perfect. Yeah, we both played this guy, right? Reed, I
Yep.
think. Yeah,
We
that
both.
list.
It was Reed, right? And I
Yeah,
also
Reed.
played the same Custodes guy.
Yeah.
So.
Um, so Reed, that list is perfectly designed to kill Dark Angels because he has
Yep.
just buckets and buckets and buckets of damage 1, strength 6, AP 2 ignores cover shooting. So your Deathwing Knights just melt.
Yep.
So, yeah, and he jails you with Kroot, right? I was able to go in and clean the Kroot out, and then I got it. F it, we ball, and I got a unit of Deathwing Knights, made an 11-inch charge on turn 1 to get into one of his flanks,
Nice.
kill a bunch of stuff, and then his unit breachers just step over and waste them, right? And this is another one of those if they didn't have ignore cover, and if armor contempt was still a thing, they probably would have survived, but it's not, and they didn't.
Right.
So the the yeah, so is what it is. Azrael made a kind of a heroic charge into the remnants of a crisis team. Uh, you know, honor the chapter in the assault doctrine. So he's going in and he spiked a little bit and killed like 3 crisis suits by himself,
Nice.
just by himself. He's like, well, they're 2 up armor and they're -1 to AP. I was like, that's fine. He's AP4 with +1 to AP, so he's AP5. Oh, suck. Get out of here,
Yep.
right? Anyway, so that was a 91 to 49 loss. And I took a bit of a drubbing there. So my second game of day 2 was into Dylan's Death Guard. And this one, so the way this tournament was structured, these were long rounds. We did a morning round, a nice little bit for lunch, and then an afternoon round on the first day, and then there was like a lot of time in the evening to go do stuff, like go to the beach. So they had like a bonfire. This day 2 on Saturday, it was a morning round and like 4 or 5 hour block, and then the second round was after dinner from 6 to 10. So I had played Dylan's Death Guard Plague Company. It was Mortarion, PBCs, kind of like a fairly typical Death Guard list, and it worked out for me. Right, the Death Guard, like the Plague Marines, are hard to kill. Right, they're hard to shift, but was able to get Predator and Ballista shooting to chip off on one. I don't think he played his Mortarion quite right. Normally you'll sit Mortarion with the PBCs around them, so they're the ignore modifiers thing. They're just gonna shoot like crazy. He didn't do that. All right. I got the Lion with some big charges and some Deathwing Knights kind of into his middle and just started messing around. And then I kept my Razorback with grav cannons in the middle, kind of protected to respond to his. I didn't want to trade them for one of the little stink Roombas. So this is where the secondary use case for Terminators came in. So he committed his big unit of 6 Death Shroud Terminators, dropped them in, shooting, picked up a unit of Deathwing Knights, and then my grav cannons and the incursors just boop, 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 shoot, boom. And I picked up an entire unit of 6 Death Shroud Terminators with 1 activation of grav cannons.
That's impressive.
And that was where the games, that was what broke them. So it went downhill from there. And it would have been a tabling, but I didn't go out and try and kill the last unit of Poxwalkers, right? But Mortarion came into the middle of the board. Mortarion was doing more, and then backed everything off. Went to shoot, had him down to 1 wound, and then Azrael shot and rolled 3 6s to wound and did 6 mortal wounds, and Mortarion went down. So anyway.
Yeah, I remember you. I was gonna say, wait, didn't Mortarion do something crazy with Azrael? Because I remember you coming over and being like, "Bro, this thing just happened."
No, that was that, right? Azrael
man,
shot
awesome.
and rolled 3 6s to wound, and blap. So that was 91-49 my favor. And then my last game on the morning of day 3, I was not feeling great. To put it that way. I was probably a little sick. I was a little hoarse, and had a touch too much to drink the night before. But my old friend Kaleo and his Wolf Jail list, and
oh boy.
So I lost, but I think I had a reasonable shot at it.
That's good.
Put scouts in the middle, stuff on the right, stuff on the left, the line in the middle, and I basically came down I had first turn, which is undesirable until kind of, I think, because I have to move and he gets to respond, and basically, I had to I jumped my I had a Land Raider with a Land Raider Redeemer. My grav cannons
Gotcha.
left the Land Raider on literally 1 wound.
Oh,
with no more shooting to put into it, because he popped smoke and it was -1 to hit, so it kind of canceled out the incursors. But man, and so my scouts had been eaten up, and I needed to make a 5-inch charge with the Razorback to basically move block his middle unit of wolves with the Razorback to trap him between 2 buildings, so that I could deal with the 2 the 2 flanking units.
right.
Razorback fails a 5-inch charge, and
Oh no.
And I mean, I had a CP. I could have rerolled it. I needed to save that to activate, a stratagem on my chaplain unit. In retrospect, that was the wrong choice. So anyway, so like, if you can't keep all 3 units from hitting you at the same time, you're gonna have a bad day. And I had a reasonable plan. It didn't work out. I didn't leave enough margin for failures, and that just didn't that went downhill. So um, anyway, you guys know my opinion on Wolf Jail, but that's what it is. So anyway, how was your tournament, Bailey?
Alrighty. Well, it was. I had a fantastic time. Ended up 23rd, went 2-3. But I do want to point out that that's probably the first time in about 3 years I won multiple games at a competitive event. So that was like, even though I was below 500, it was sort of a big deal to, to win it all, and then to win multiple games was pretty exciting for me. So, and then just to actually like meet all these people he's been talking about on the podcast for all these years and play a couple of them was a pretty big deal. The biggest regret is I didn't get to play Joe, so I'm hoping that if you guys make it out for Adepticon, I am packing my Dark Angels list and I'm gonna try and get Joe to play me so I can finally say that I played
we registered
Joe's
for
Necrons.
Adepticon. We registered for Adepticon a couple weeks ago, so we will be out there.
Nice.
So
Nice. All right, so I look forward to that. Alrighty, so I had Assault Intercessors and Azrael. I had the Ballistus Dreadnought. It was his debut. I had 3 Deathwing Knight squads. I've painted up a third with the new swords, so that was exciting. Took a Hail Strike to go with a squad of intercessors, or to kind of work with them together. I got a squad of Jump Pack Intercessors. I finally got done and painted, and I brought those. Brought a squad of Outriders, Min Squad, a Min Squad of Ravenwing Black Knights. I brought the Ravenwing Command Squad with the Fury of the Storm upgrade. I brought a Scout Squad, and then I brought a Thunderstrike. And so basically the idea was the Hail Strike was supposed to work in concert with the Intercessors to try and get the most out of the new shooting rules. And then the other concept, I know we've talked about this before, is I finally put to the test of, all right, I have a Min Squad of Ravenwing Black Knights, I have a Min Squad of of Outriders, and then my command squad based on matchup will go in either squad, and then so I have a squad of bikes that I can use to kind of like skirmish or push or hold down a flank or rapidly redeploy if I have to, and then I have sort of one punchy one based on the opponent, and then I just kind of kept notes on what unit they went with based on the opponent every round. And I actually ended up by the end of the game going, you know what, or the tournament, I actually need to do that with Azrael, because the main idea is you put him with Assault Intercessors so that way he gets to reroll wounds on objectives and just reroll ones in general. But I kept finding that the Intercessors kept getting stuck in spots where like they were holding objectives instead of going out and challenging for objectives, and that really wasn't useful to do use that with them, because they don't have that pistols, so like they're stuck in a corner and they can't really interact with the rest of the game other than just sit on this objective. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to leave Ezreal in a corner, I'm going to put him with a squad that has guns so they can at least shoot. So when I got to game 5, I ended up making that swap. So I actually had multiple units where I was kind of doing that matchup shuffle, right? So round 1, I played Reed's Tau. As you mentioned, you played him later in the tournament. I played him round 1. He had the Kroot Jail. I ended up losing 90-69. I got tabled. But I felt like I gave myself a good accounting in the sense that I felt I had a good time because I was killing tons of stuff every turn. But yeah, it's that like greater concept, and it's something I know that I've heard from like Stephen Box, like back when he started Vanguard Tactics. So, like there are the lists, like we talk about specific lists, but then there's like play styles, right? Where we have the jails, right? Like that's a specific play style that translates from army to army to army. Different armies do it different ways, and it's not so much the list itself or the army; it's how it plays and how do you get out of jails. And that Kroot jail is really powerful because there's just so many models, right? You have to be able to get the most out of your units, and that's where having like Deathwing Knights in a way kind of hurts you because they don't have guns. So you have all these points tied up into 5 dudes that can kill a lot of stuff. But if they were like regular Terminators and
70 points worth of Kroot, who cares, right? Yeah. So
yeah, exactly. And now they're out in the open. Yep. And now those knights are out in the open and they're dying, and you need to, and because you only have so many dice, right? you need to be killing stuff all the time. So like I've never felt that, like I know sometimes people like to deep strike one of their squads, but I looked at his list and went, dude, if I'm not on you turn one,
Nope.
killing multiple squads of Kroot every single turn, I
He
don't have
has
enough dice like
yeah.
mathematically to kill all your stuff. This is not
He
good.
has so much stuff that if you keep something in
Yeah.
reserve, he will screen you out. Right. I kind of
Yeah.
tried to solve that problem by I put the lion into his big middle, like his big middle unit of Kroot. Say, hey, I can pick up all these guys with the lion's sweep attack, and then he'll be next to this unit of Deathwing Knights that's kind of behind a wall to try and keep him safe for at least another turn. But yeah, I mean, you scored more points against them than I did, but you scored 20 more points against them than I did. So I don't know. Oh God,
Well,
like that. Yeah,
well, and I feel like part of it too is he was a little cagey with me, and maybe that's one of the differences between you and me is that I felt that he definitely like kept things in reserve until turn 3. That made me feel like I had more chance to get more primary,
mm-hmm.
and then like his suits were definitely, he was like trying to skim just the edge of his maximum range and be like 2 or 3 units layers of screens in between
Yeah.
me and him, so that way even if I tried to shoot a couple screens out of the units out of the way in my turn, there was still something standing in front of the suits that I would have to kill in close combat before I could even get to the suits. And then the suits, were not, if I tagged them, it didn't matter because they were vehicles.
And the
But in that
auxiliary
black,
cadre has that rule where you're like, if a Tau unit is within a few inches of a auxiliary unit like Kroot or Vespid, you can't shoot them unless you're within 18 inches, and that's frustrating. So, yeah,
yeah, because there are enough bodies, they will just screen you more than 18 inches away.
yeah,
But that's the one where I ran the Black Knights with the command squad because they give the anti-monster, anti-vehicle, and I was looking at that into the suits. It's just I kind of held my bikes back again a little bit too long because I was looking at all these screens and I'm like, I'm not going to run my bikes out and just let them get mauled by shooting because I can't get them into close combat. But I really needed them out there and have maybe some better line of sight blocking because I needed the guns on the bikes to kill screens, and I just
mm-hmm.
wasn't getting the most out of my units turn after turn. And so that's kind of where, when running into these jail lists, that's the thing you have to be aware of with these like hyper elite Deathwing Knight lists of, you have to be killing stuff all the time, or you're gonna. It's the same issue with that Chicken Walker death list from the Chaos Knights, right? They have so many of them that it's like if you're not killing 3 or 4 of these a turn, you're going to get killed. They will kill you
Yeah,
before you kill them. It's
and they're
not enough
all
to kill just a
battle
couple of them
line
every turn.
OC8, and so like you're
Yeah.
gonna have a hard time controlling objectives against them. So,
Yep.
yeah. All right. So, what was your game 2?
Game 2, I played the Custodius guy that you played, James, round 1. So I felt kind of bad for him that he had to play 2 Dark Angels players back to back. It was a 84-76 win. And that's one of those where, and we talked about it after the game. We had his awesome turn where everything committed to the board for the most part, except for one of his like big squads. It stayed hidden behind a wall. I think it was the Wardens, the one that he was really good at like doing all these like debuffs on, and he charged me
Yeah.
with his Terminators that he couldn't do as many debuffs with. And so I was able to kill his Terminators, kill a couple of his other squads by the time the Wardens came in. And by the time he committed his Wardens, he had so few units left, he kind of had to keep them in the middle of the board to keep scoring primary. And I had enough fast units because I got into his home deployment zone to took his home objective from him because I just like blitz spikes back in there to charge the sisters. And then when he reactive moved through a wall, he moved to the side where I had Deathwing Knights. And so the Deathwing Knights charged into them and into his tank because he had the anti-grav tank, and I just beat the living daylights out of it with the bikes and the Terminators, and then just kind of made sure to max out my points. And when it got to turn 5 and I realized I didn't really have to do anything and I'd won, I just like, I'm not gonna, there's no point in playing this out to like max, like I'm not trying to rub it in on you. I had a great game. We had this epic fight in the middle and I won it. And that kind of, well, I won it at the key point. He won it overall because he ended up being the only guy in the middle of the board at the end of the game. But by then it was too late.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not trying to run up the score on you just because I want to get a better placing next round. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're here in Hawaii. Let's go have a break and like enjoy ourselves.
Yep.
So that was that. game 3, I played Todd, who was the main man running the whole show, and he had Puppy Prison. But his list, different from what I think your buddy Clay was running, is that he was running jump pack guys with chaplains, like 10-man jump pack squads with chaplains, and that was his Puppy Prison, and that was scary. And the cool thing is, and Heath and I talked about this after I played, is like there's nothing there really that Dark Angels players can't do either, because I thought chaplains had been legends, but they're not. The chaplains with jump packs, so you can pop them into a jump pack intercessor squad and run around and give them +1 to wound and do mortal wounds with your jump pack chaplain, and then have all those chainsword attacks. So that was very terrifying. But it was nice
just for
to kind
argument's
of
sake, Chaplain's other ability is the Jump Pack Chaplain has the Litany of Hate, so +1 wound. Its other ability is each time this model's unit is selected to fight, you can select one enemy unit within engagement range and roll a d6. On a 4 to 5, they take d3 mortal wounds. On a 6, they take 3.
Yep, and that's how he was getting my... I was popping all my Watchers, trying to stop that, like the initial time. Because I'm like, well, they're probably not going to survive this initial time, so I might as well spend it now. And then the other thing, too, it's one of those lists where... right, with the Thunderwolf Cav, they get bonus damage when they charge you. So if you have a chance to get a jump on them, or if you survive and then countercharge them, they're not nearly as nasty.
Yeah,
and
you
then
have to. The issue you have to charge them. You cannot let them be charge you. You have to charge them. Same thing with Outriders.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is one of those things where like he put a bunch of stuff on the line, I put a bunch of stuff on the line, going, I know what he's going to do to me. I know I have to go get him, or he's going to come get me, and he came and got me. So I ended up losing 90-22. But there were a couple, half decent turns where I killed a bunch of stuff and it still felt pretty good. I've always been one of those players, like when you read the old White Dwarf articles, where like there's the guy that like got absolutely hammered, but he won the game. And so his post-game analysis is like, oh, I did all right. I won, but man, that was rough. Then there's the guy that lost, and he's like, yeah, I lost, but did you see what I did to that guy's list? Bro, I killed everything. So, I try and keep that mentality when I play, because I'm not very good, and I got to hold on to something, right? I got to have those epic moments. But it was pretty cool. And yeah, that was the game where the winds picked up and the 3D printed terrain we had was getting blown across the tables and wiping out whole armies. So we had to have good memory to put everything back where it was.
Yeah, we had to like tape the maps down and like weight the things down. So yeah, that's on the list to fix for next year.
Yep. So that was round 3. Round 4 that night, I went into an Eldar list that had the big Wraith Knight. It had Avatar. And this was one of those where I tried to use the reactive move to try and save myself some points. And it ended up not helping me, I believe, in the end. And it ended up taking up so much time because I did that move. And so he kind of redid his first turn in reaction to me doing that reactive move. And it just ate up a ton of our time. And we didn't get to finish turn 4. If we'd finished turn 4, it would have been a 51-51 draw. But I then talked to him afterwards because he was like, oh, man, you've been really helpful. Help me with this. Let's just do that. And I said, no, because when Amory, the GTO, called time, it was halfway through and I hadn't scored these points. And I'm going to tell you, if we played turn 5, because I wasn't messing around trying to be cheeky, you win this game by 20 points, and here's how you do it. So, I appreciate you letting us finish out the turn just to see what I could have done. But I've played this game long enough to know that I was toast, the turn before. So, I want to give you your win. You deserve it. And, and just, continue on with your tournament. It just galled me because the guy who's playing Eldar is just, I can't stand those pointy elves. I hate them so much. But it's, and Eldar just, they have an answer for everything when it comes to Space Marines. Oh, I need to make this roll. Fate die. Oh, I need to do this thing. I get a free reroll here, and I have a fate die, and I can do. And it's like, man.
Well, most of that stuff has changed with their new. A lot of stuff changed with their new codex.
Yeah.
Now they just have more movement shenanigans, but the fate dice is gone for the most part. So.
Oh, thank goodness! Thank goodness. Yeah. But he was a really fun guy. His name was Kevin. And it was a fairly new player, so it was and I don't mind playing new players. I used to be a teacher, so I don't mind doing teaching games and things, and that's kind of how that felt. And yeah, I tried to go in and kill the Avatar, and I didn't, and he just started picking up all my dudes, and that was that basically.
The Avatar will do that. So is
Yep.
like, how do you deal with the Avatar? Grenades, tank shock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And then the last game I played, the guy that ended up like getting the wooden spoon, basically. His name was Peter. He's a really nice dude. He was
Gorgeous
playing
army.
Gene Steer the Colt.
Gorgeous
Yeah.
army.
Oh yeah.
He also won
And
Best
he was
Painted.
also and it was narrative too, because he's like, I don't play any kind of spam at all. Like I just play one. I have one of everything, right? Like he does not like doing that. So he had kind of a more thematic army, which I appreciated, because a lot of my army was like, oh, I brought this because I finished painting it and I've not got to play
Yeah.
with it yet. So I'm going to figure out how to get it to Hawaii. So uh, again, another game where this game didn't. We got to like turn 3, and I don't think it was like because we were like being slow or anything. It's just I got into combat turn 1 with so many different things, and his units are so big. We were just rolling so many dice every single turn. We just couldn't get the game done. But by the end of turn 3, I was in his deployment zone taking his home objective, and he had used all of his reinforcement points. He deployed all of his reserve units. Like all he had left is what he had, and I was just cleaning house with Terminators, just like picking up multiple squads a turn. He
Yeah.
didn't have like any, my Deathwing Knights came out, charged across the board, made some big charges, got into a bunch of his Lehman Russes. This is the game where I put the intercessors with Azrael, and it worked out because sustained hit intercessors were able to plink the last wound off a Lehman Russ tank.
Hmm.
And that, which then freed up my Deathwing Knights to charge into the home objective and start picking up the big fatty squad of acolytes that were hiding in there with the character unit, and which I needed because it was marked for death, and that was just a huge point swing. So that one ended up being like 50 to 26, and Peter was a really fun guy to play with, and yeah, I had a gorgeously painted army. He had all his hazard stripes were perfect, and that's
Yeah.
not easy
It
to
was
do.
really
I've done,
nice. It was really nice. So
yeah,
I think he was like,
yeah.
was it on Saturday or Sunday? He like had a like a Gene Stealer like guard officer like cosplay kind of thing. It was,
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So yeah,
okay,
so he was very, very fun guy to play. Really enjoyed it. Highly recommend playing
all right.
Peter.
So what's the lessons learned, and where do you think you're going from here?
So what I learned is that kind of having that shift between Outriders and Black Knights like actually kind of worked. Like there were definitely scenarios where boosting the damage and the on and strength on the champion helped with the Outriders, but then there were games where it's like, no, I kind of need the mortal wound or the dev wound stuff, so I'm going to go this way instead. Try and spam that. But I feel like I need full squads. Like just doing
Mm-hmm.
3 isn't enough. Definitely feel like you need like a 6-man bike squad and then any other 6-man bike squad. So I got to find points in my list to do that. Um, I feel like Azrael with intercessors over assault intercessors is something I need to explore going forward. Because just assault intercessors aren't doing anything if they are camped somewhere. I have other units that can do that better, because what I basically realized is that I just need to start with intercessors on objectives, sticky them, and then just move on with my life.
Yeah.
Like I don't actually want to leave things behind. I want to just keep with this list. I just got to keep pressing, going, advancing and charging, and I feel like that the assault intercessors, as much as they are the assault intercessors, they don't they kind of felt slow in a sense compared
Yeah,
to
because
what
you're
I
trying to use
needed
them
to.
to babysit objectives instead of pushing them
Yep,
forward. So I
yep.
feel that.
And then I thought about maybe trying to bring the full squad of eradicators in, like trying to sneak that in, because I had a box at home, and I have 3 done already. Because I want to try and find a way to make that blitzing fusillade stratagem where it gives us something assault, and then if it already has assault, sustained hits. Because I feel like that's a way to kind of get cheeky and do the blob, the Eradicator blob that is now so much more expensive in Gladius Task Force. You can kind of mimic it with just a command point in this list without the character. And if you do bring the character, the Biologus, you can give him an upgrade that lets you fall back and still shoot,
Hmm.
which could possibly work on the Ravenwing Black Knight squad if you had a bigger squad and you want to be able to fall back and shoot. with them, but man, I was kind of nervous about that +1 strength, +1 AP, and then +2 on the charge for both. I was like, 25 points for that doesn't seem worth it, but man, a neg 4 2 damage sword or a neg 4 3 damage sword
That's
was very
strength
spicy.
8, because I think the mastercrafted power weapon starts at strength 6 AP2. So on the charge with that enhancement, it goes to strength 8 AP4, 2 damage if you're with Black Knights, 3 damage if you're with Outriders. That does not
Yeah.
suck. Yeah, that's good.
No, yeah, and when I was telling people like, yeah, this is now like AP4, they're like, well, never mind, I'm just gonna just start picking things up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
people were so that ended up actually being a 25 points well spent when I was initially like, I'm just kind of doing it because it sounds cool. I think it's kind of a waste, but it ended up not being that. So that was sort of what I got out of my list going forward. I want to try and have a little bit more range shooting just because I like having a more well balanced list. But that was something Aaron was telling me. He's like, why would you do that when the list is built to shoot? Part of it is just who I am. I like combined force, and I feel like one of the things that also I've learned from listening to all these other people we've had on the show talk is that sometimes you can get people by thinking outside the box with things, right? Like people are going to look at your Stormlance list and they're going to see the Deathwing Knights and think, oh yeah, this is what it is. And then I'm like, well, if I have the Eradicators and they still operate like Gladius Task Force Eradicators and not Gladius Task Force, people aren't going to be ready for that, or and that's going to give me a little bit of an advantage in that sense, because it's a little unpredictable. I feel like.
Okay.
But
So I am.
what did you find, Heath? What are you feeling?
Well, I think I understand Gladius very deeply, and I just couldn't get to where I was comfortable in Lion's Blade, but I do like the idea of Stormlance and Company of Hunters, and so maybe I try and go back to Company of Hunters. The problem with Company of Hunters is, as you said, the stratagems don't support anything that's not Ravenwing, so maybe Stormlance. That being said, I've kind of sort of painted up. See if I can find them over here. So I'm working on painting up Sternguard,
Nice.
because I think that Sternguard are in an interesting spot. So Azrael, the unit of 10 Sternguard, could be real spicy. I also painted up 3 more Outriders.
Nice.
So I've got a unit of 6 that are painted, or I can do 2 units of 3. So that's kind of where I'm going. Is I'm going to start trying to. I want to try and get one of those. I think part of the reason I've been so down on it before is because like the terrain in my local game store doesn't really have the same effect that the GW terrain is, where you set up the thing where you can be in cover but still move over it. So you have to like go around, and that really, yeah. Whereas you had like the terrain, like the official GW terrain layouts are a little more friendly for bikes. So yeah. But that's kind of
No, I hear you.
where I want to go. Is I want to try using Sternguard, right, and see if that'll get me some shooting. I mean, there's a Company of Hunters kind of sort of solves a bit of that problem in that like you could have just an Invader ATV sit them on your backfield, right, or then you do the 1 CP to Hunters trail it so it becomes sticky, and then it's just run around doing objective stuff. But and having bikes that can all advance and charge is really nice. So, but I also have to finish painting my other command squad. So, yeah, so that's kind of the directions I'm trying to take things right now. So,
yeah, that's the thing with the command squad. I've painted 2 ancients for Ravenwing, one for somebody else, one for myself. I don't ever want to do that again. And that's the thing about like Aaron's list sounds cool conceptually, but I am not painting that banner 2 more times. I am not. I refuse. I'm going to find a way to cheat it and do something else if I have to. If I don't know if I ever feel the motivation. I had an ancient that I'd like taken a cape off of, like it had the antenna off the back of the old bike, and then I'd taken the cape off of the old Deathwing Knight captain, the sergeant, and glued that to the antenna, and then made it out to look like a flag. And that was my ancient, because I'm like, man, I am not messing with this. But then again, I don't. Since this was an official tournament, I was like, and I had a box. I was like, I don't want someone to be like, oh, you're modeling for advantage because you don't have this giant flag, flying in the breeze. I'm like, I do like the giant breeze flag, but I don't like having to do all the detail work on it. I did it because it would drive me nuts to not do it.
It's a tough one to paint.
I saw a cool concept where someone did it in just 3 colors, where it was like white, like bone white, black, and red. And I saw it online
Interesting.
somewhere, and I thought
Okay,
that's
that'd
cool.
be cool.
But my problem is that so much, like if you look at my bikes, like so much of my stuff is like intricately painted. Like I went in on all the like the little ornate pieces on the command bikes, and I like I didn't just do like a solid gold or a solid silver. Like I did a sword with the cross guard in gold, and
Yeah,
then the sword metal, the blade is metal, and then the scroll is scroll colored. Like I like to do all those little things because I feel like people look at Deathwing Knight or Ravenwing Knights and go, "Oh, they're just black," and that's kind of boring. And I like to go in and intentionally add a bunch of random colors to them and pull out all these details so that I don't feel like I'm just painting a giant, ugly black model. Like it's actually a very ornate, you know,
yeah.
piece of tech,
Black is
and that's what I
tough.
like about it. Yeah,
Because well, like getting the shading and the highlighting on black, and I've gotten a lot of experience with it now, but it's really just like shades of gray, and how you just
yeah,
like painting white is really just shades of blue. So anyway, all right, we can talk about that forever. But
yep,
um,
yep, yep.
so
All right, uh,
speaking
I'm
of monthly
thinking.
challenge,
Yep,
like I said I did a unit of 3 Outriders, right? So the original unit of 3 Outriders, you can see I wanted to make them Raven wingy, so I cut a unit of wings off the bikes and put them on their
yep.
like little control vanes. I didn't have that to do with these, but I still think they look great. I also finished, if I can find it real quick.
Well, and in the new upgrade kit, there's a lot more stuff like that for
Yeah,
specifically formulated for Outriders.
I also finished my bike chaplain.
Oh yeah, look at that
Right?
guy.
And the robes are all green stuff.
Ooh,
Yeah. Um, and
nice.
he's got the that's a Dark Angel book on top.
Yep.
So because like the model comes with a closed book, I'm like, no, 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 we read, we do open books. We're smart Marines.
Oh yeah.
So then
Right
I've got
here, right here, it says you're wrong.
yes, and then I've got 10 Stern Guard, 5 of which I built and got to this like probably like 3 color ish base, and then the other 5 of which I'd had built for a while. Um, but I kind of got them a little closer. I put a couple more details on them and painted the base, but they can still get finished. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. That's what I'm working
Nice.
on. What about or what are you going to work on?
So from getting back and talk about the Eradicators, I cracked open my box. I got 3 of them built and primed. So that was actually quite a feat considering how cold it was here. Uh, Heath and Joe have a chat with me in Messenger, and they made it into one of my company Zoom calls for the entire company because the boss was like, "What are you doing today?" And I said, "Well, I'm just waiting for my buddies in Hawaii to tell me how warm it is there because it's like -3 here today, and I'm in my
Yeah.
car trying to not freeze on this Zoom call." And he just laughed because that's what Heath and Joe have been doing almost every
So
day
I do
since
want to
I
point
got
out
back.
that it was chilly this morning here in Kaneohe. I put on a fleece to eat my breakfast because I was cold. It was in the
Yep.
60s.
Yep.
You should respect my pain. So
Yep. I mean, it got to 39 the other day here, and I just put on a light jacket because I was like, man, this is warm. I love this. This is so
mm,
much better than the -3 I've been having to go out and work in with, 3 or 4 different layers and like thermal
yep.
underpants on for skiing just to do my day job. But anyway, the fun part with these is that I swapped out all the heads. So like I took some of the hooded heads from that upgrade kit I just talked about with the Outriders and slapped them in there, and then I took like a head from there's like like he's got a hood, but he's kind of pushed it back head from the Deathwing Knights that I had extra that I slapped in
Yeah.
on one of the dudes. And then one of my favorite heads, hooded heads, are for these like shooting units, are the Eliminator heads, or I think they're Eliminator
Oh
heads
yeah, yeah.
from with the goggles and the hoods from uh the Eliminator Squad but I didn't have it's the whatever that Shadow Strike box. Like I had a Shadow Strike box like half,
hmm
and that's where I got my eliminators from. And I just had some extra heads from there, and I like to like hide them in everywhere just because I think they're cool with the night vision goggles. So I thought, oh, that'll look cool on an Eradicator. Let's pop that
Yeah.
head in there. and keep the Dark Angels
makes
theme
sense.
going with hoods.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's my favorite bit there. So for next month, what are we feeling, Heath? Like, I need to paint these. I have some Vanguard vet scouts that need to go or not scouts, jump pack guys that are supposed to help make my jump pack captain Deathwing at some point, so I can try Lion's Blade. I do have a lot of Reavers I can paint.
Okay.
I have Reavers I need to paint. I got them built and primed a while back.
Maybe I should try and get a unit of Reavers. Maybe let's call it a unit of Reavers. I think I need to pick up. I can pick up a unit. I might have 3 sitting around somewhere from like back in 8th edition. But I
gotcha.
pirated a lot of the stuff off them to make other models because they were terrible and there's no point to ever run them.
Yeah.
But I'll go buy a box of Reavers and see if I can paint them up along with my Stern Guard. So I don't have any work travel at the time planned for the next several months. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, my next plan to travel is Adepticon in March. So
yeah. Yeah, cool. I got a con between now and Adepticon that I got to paint a bunch of Civil War period buildings for. So that's kind of where like my time got caught up. Is like I'm now like building and painting Punic War Gauls and some like Union Zouaves, and then a bunch of farmhouses so that we have terrain to fight over at this thing in Cincinnati, and then start prepping for Adepticon. So
there is another GT in middle of March in Hawaii. It's a nice. 2-day event at Hanakoa Brewing Company. Unfortunately, I will most likely not be going because that's the weekend before Adepticon. And so. But that's
Adepticon. I'd take Adepticon too.
That's the weekend before Adepticon. So so I gotta, probably not going to go spend the whole weekend playing 40K when I'm about to go to Adepticon for 4 days. So,
alrighty.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, community comments. I'm going to share this up real quick and then probably edit it down just because I don't want to give away too many of our secrets because this is the Dark Angels as it is. But we're going to do this real quick just because I am a silly boy and forgot to put this in the document. So I
actually pulled it up on YouTube and looked at it myself. Yeah.
So we got Gerard saying that you have the anti-vehicle, anti-monster on Stern Guard. So
completely correct. We talked about that. Yeah.
Then Alan and his Wraith Raider saying, here's the thing with the Psychic detachment. The main rules effect, Adeptus Astartes Psyker units. Stick an Inquisitor in, and you get all those keywords, though some strats are locked to Adeptus Astartes Psyker models. So there's a way to kind of cheap ping in an Inquisitor.
Okay. Interesting.
So, there we go.
Well, let's go look at that now. All right. All right.
All my old...
Good job, Gerard. Good job, Alan. Good job.
All my old robed...
Dang it. All right.
Yeah. Firstborn sergeants with combi weapon from 7th edition are likely to become Stern Guard now. So, yep, I have some of those as well. And some of the old pewter boys. I know those. I've got some of those myself. Alan comes back again saying something else to consider. You can play Dark Angels detachments, and as long as you don't bring any Dark Angels keyword units, then you can get the +1 to wound with the Oath of the Moment with the new Space Marine upgrade for Oath of the Moment. For where like the non sort of like main deviant factions, like make your own Space Marines get the +1 to wound with Oath of the Moment now with the new data slate. And
I'd have to go read a couple things. I mean, like, I trust Alan, but I'm not entirely certain that's how the chapter specific keywords work, but I need to go double check on that. So, I mean, like, look, why are you playing? I guess you can play Dark Angel attachments. Yeah, I don't know. Like, you play Dark Angels because you want to play Deathwing Knights and the cool bikes and all that stuff. So, is what it is.
Yep, that's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, why would I? But no, my boys. So, all right, but
not technically wrong, but yeah.
Alan went 4-1 at Nottingham,
and we did not.
I went 2-3 at something small. So, Alan knows what he's doing. I'm just here to rep the first Legion. So, not that Alan doesn't do that; he just does it in his own way. It's much better than mine. So, Alan also says Fusillade is 100% designed for Stern Guard. So, yeah, that is... I just feel like that stratagem is there... in that Stormlance detachment to give you that some of that flexibility that you're losing because you're not playing Gladius. It's just sort of like that little ace in the hole of, oh, by the way, in this giant list of melee, there's this one or two shooting units that just like surprise were extra Daki because now we have sustained hits that you weren't expecting to give you that one wound you need, right? You have the one wound on the Land Raider in your game where I had a one wound left on a Lehman Russ, and it's like I just need this one unit to have this little extra kick just so it punches mathematically one step higher to get something done, and that stratagem's there to do it. So
all right,
that is that. I guess the last thing that we didn't quite mention with the tournament that I talked to Todd about, and he sent me some stuff, and I just want to throw it out here at the end, is that this wasn't just we weren't just playing 40K for the sake of playing 40K. This was actually a fundraiser for the Tablewar Charities, and
True.
a lot, the money that went in, helped cover costs, but the idea was that it would exceed costs enough that they could use it to help with their advocacy, which they do a lot of work for children with autism, making sure that they get the services that they need when they go to school and helping families understand what they need while they're and what do their children need and what services, because like legally, being a former school teacher, I can tell you that there's a lot of stuff that like it once it's in an IEP or an IED, like depending on where you are, what terminology they're using, like that's legal. Like teachers have to follow it. They don't get to pick and choose. Like there's some like pretty serious stuff in there, that if people aren't following it, like your license and your career is over. So like this is and this is stuff the kids need, because if the kids don't get it, then they will have a very, very hard time with school going forward. And it's and it's sometimes a lot of times it's for stuff like they need the help, like they're not like every other kid, and they need some special help, and so that's what Tablewar Charities is doing. And what is it that they needed, like about $2,500 helps a family.
Yeah,
And I
so
think they said
each
like,
$2,500 will probably help one family with one kid. So
yep. And I think they said the event, the costs were around 10 grand, and they raised about 1,500 or $15,000.
yeah,
So it was
they
pretty close to two
did pretty
families
good.
getting
Yeah,
help.
I don't know exactly what the costs are, but
Yeah.
they said they raised enough they could probably help 2.5 families. So which is good.
Yep. And like in addition to the tournaments, like there were like little raffles, like there was a nice bottle of bourbon that got raffled off. There were Table War products and Army Painter products that were being raffled off that people were donating to get raffle tickets. If you lost a game, you got 2 tickets. If you won a game, you only got 1 ticket. So there was some incentive to stay there and keep losing. If you was like, oh,
Yeah,
I lost my first game, I'm not going to win the tournament. I'm just going to take my minis and go home. Well, no, because you have a chance to win like these really nice, paint
yeah,
sets
paint
or
sets and like
travel sets.
a tableware case. You got a lot of good stuff. They
Yep.
had all the drinks, beer and alcohol were donated by a local distributor, and so you paid donations to drink your
Yep.
fill. So it was good. It was well done. So,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
said for a good cause.
So
Todd's
if
very passionate about it.
Yep. No, and I'm passionate about it too, because talked to Todd about it when I was like doing all my paperwork, and I'm like, yeah, man, I no wait, I've friends, family, former students, a lot of people in my life that that have autism, and yeah, I've that's why I was like, I had to go. When you told me about this, I was like, that's it, I'm going, because this is for a whole community of people that I've worked with my entire life, that that I can pass on and help that community somewhere else. And I don't. Is this like it's not locked to Hawaii? Is it? I don't think it
No, you can
is.
donate from anywhere. And because I don't know exactly what their like distribution type stuff is, but I'm pretty sure that you can you can ask them and they'll see what they can do for you. I don't think it's locked to
Yep.
Hawaii. So if you like, if Hawaii is a little too out of reach for you, like if you come see us at Adepticon at the booth, they had last year at Adepticon they had some really nice raffle prizes. They had a gold-plated Harder and Steenbeck airbrush. They had miniatures that were like professionally painted by some real like by like CK Studios. So really 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 good stuff. And it's once again it's for a great
Yep.
cause. So
Yep. So as you plan for the if the event happens next year and you're planning on coming, just remember, that there's a larger reason right behind it all, and it is definitely worth it. And come donate often and frequently while you're at the event, because there's lots of they make it worth your time, and it's going to help some people that really really do need the help. And I've got a link here. I've got some stuff I'll put in post production where there's some QR codes where if you want to donate today, you can, and it'd be greatly appreciated. And we were in no way paid in any way to do this. I'm doing it because I believe in it. Right? I'm like, yeah, this is important and serious, and we should talk about it and promote it just out of charity, essentially. Indeed. So, all right. Any other final thoughts, Heath?
Nope. I'll reach out and we'll try and see if we can get Rob and or Aaron at some point. Maybe do a short cycle. Once again for some faction specialization. And just back, it's new year. This is I think like the beginning of year 5 for us.
Year 5, I think, for us.
Year 5. We started in January 2021. So there you go. It's been a minute.
Yep. So it's all exciting, and we got a whole another year of awesome content, and then hopefully a big fun Hawaii get together again at the end of it. So thank you all for listening to this month's episode of the Path to Redemption, the Warhammer 40,000 Dark Angels podcast. Our next episode will come out in March, and we'll try and get that edited and out before we all take off to Adepticon. And then that month's episode will definitely come out a little bit later in April, because our normal recording weekend is Adepticon. So that will be a bit. So please subscribe, and comment below so that when those things do come out, you don't miss them on YouTube or your preferred podcasting service. Heath and I still need to talk about music, because we might have changed music by the time post-production, by the time I get this out. So I'm going to skip that part and just say until next time, I'm Bailey from Dank Wargaming.
This is Heath from Team Tablewar.
Stay loyal, Angels.